Chapter 9. On Monday evening, Rachel's parents go out to visit friends and she's home alone. She washes her hair, wraps it in a towel, turban fashion. She likes being in the house alone, likes the quiet, familiar sound, floors creaking, the furnace humming, a clock ticking. Outside it's cool, the wind is blowing, and leaves patter down the roof. All this begins a poem in her mind. You wonder where, you listen here, and then you wonder where, you listen here. All the years, and leaves, and leaves, and leaves. Downstairs she puts on a record, an old Beatles record that was Jeremy's, and lies on the living room floor, writing in her journal. First the poem, then a new page. Then it's the start of a letter to Jeremy. Dear Jeremy, have you ever noticed how sometimes it seems impossible to be happy, and other times it's easy? Right now I'm happy because 1, my hair is clean. 2, I just started a poem. 3, I'm writing to you. And, 4, if I feel like it, I can sing and no one's here to say, "Oh, Rachel's tin ear." The phone rings in the kitchen. Good evening, Miss Cooper.
Oh, good evening, Miss Cooper. This is Ron, heartbroker of station WTIC. I have 3 trivia questions for you, Miss Cooper.
No thanks, I don't.
Entitling you to win 3
Hold on,
newly minted diamonds.
Diamonds? Rachel says, momentarily, diverted.
Diamonds, Miss Cooper. 30 cents. Now, Miss Cooper, your first trivia question. Take your time. Miss Cooper, this is not easy. Miss Cooper, who is buried in Grant's tomb? Stumped? Miss...
Who is this?
Ron Heartbroker of Station WTI.
Who is this?
She repeats. Lewis, he says meekly.
Lewis Allswanger?
Wait a second. Let me check. Yeah, this is Lewis Allswanger. Is this Rachel Cooper?
Wait a second. Let me check.
Hi, Rachel.
Hello, Lewis.
Then there's silence. Rachel thinks of something to say, but dismisses most of them as uninteresting or silly. Finally, when she can't stand the silence any longer, she says,
So what are my other questions, Ron?
Ron? Lewis says in his Lewis voice.
Ron?
Lewis says in his Lewis voice, sounding alarmed.
Mr. Heartbroker, are you having problems?
Mr. Oh, yes. Miss Cooper, problems is my second. He breaks off and yells away from the phone. Okay, I heard you. Rachel, sorry, my father wants the phone. And when he wants the phone...
Right. Bye, Lewis.
Wait, Rachel. Ron Heartbroker wants to know if he made an ass of himself.
Oh, no. He was just doing his job. Wasn't he, Lewis?
Well, he's awfully, sensitive. So, are you sure?
I'm sure.
Would you mind saying it again, just to reassure him?
Yes. No, I wouldn't mind.
Say the whole thing, Lewis urges, like this. No, Lewis Heartbroker did not make an ass of himself.
You said it. I second it.
You're just not saying it. You're just not saying it to be nice to me?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
but I mean it, too.
I hope so. Bye, Rachel.
Bye, Lewis.
About 10 minutes after they hang up, the phone rings again. Mrs. Cooper? A brisk voice says, This is Dr. North. I want you to come into my office tomorrow.
Dr. Lewis North, I presume?
Rachel says, coyly. Mrs. Cooper, this is Dr. Edward North. We need to talk about your father.
Oh, Dr. North, I'm sorry. This isn't.
I'll put Betty on, and you can make an appointment with her.
There's a click. Then, Mrs. Cooper, Betty here. When would be a good time for you to come into the office? Dr. North only has morning hours tomorrow. How about 10 o'clock? I have an opening then. This is Rachel. Oh, I see. I have a noon slot open too, Mrs. Cooper. How about that? Noon? She says. 12 o'clock? That sound okay? See you then, Mrs. Cooper. You'll see my mother, Rachel says in one last attempt to make matters clear, but Betty has already hung up. Rachel sits down with a jam tart and a book, but she doesn't read. She's bothered that the doctor wants to talk to her mother about her grandfather. Why doesn't he talk to Izzy? Doesn't he think Izzy's... Does he think just because Izzy's in his 80s, he's incompetent or sensitive or senile? The injustice of it annoys her, and some dim impulse to make up for this to her grandfather sends her to the phone.
Yes,
her grandfather says. Grandpa, is that you?
Who'd you expect, President Reagan?
It's me, Rachel says. Your granddaughter, she adds, to be perfectly clear.
What do you want, Rachel?
This stops her dead for a moment. Then she says, You still have those pains in your stomach?
They went away.
Oh, good. I'm all over the flu, too.
Rachel, I'm playing Scrabble with my neighbor. My neighbor Miller. Maybe you could let me go back to it.
She barely puts down the phone when it rings again.
This is Dr. Roof.
This is Dr. Roof, a falsetto informs her. I, Dr. Rufus Roof, am a well-known sexual expert throughout the world and universe. Dr. Roof solves all sexual problems. Maybe you got sexual problems you want solved? Tell Dr. Rufus Roof. Go ahead, please. Hi, Lewis, Rachel says.
Yo, Rachel, what are you doing?
Well, Rachel says, not much except talking on the phone.
Getting a lot of weird calls, are you?
You could say so.
Say so?
Lewis says.
So, Rachel says. Say, I like a person who says so.
I do too.
Excellent.
We're in agreement, says Rachel.
Very
good, says Dr. Roof. That is a splendid start with a warm, loving relationship. Although I must warn you, there will certainly be a few little sexual problems.
On the phone, Rachel decides, Lewis is like a different person. For one thing, he talks. For another, he's funny. And besides that, he has a deep, resonant voice, which she appreciates for the first time.
You have a nice voice, she says.
I do?
Uh-huh.
Nice how? Give me some of the details.
Well, it's kind of deep.
Any more? He urges. This is good for my ego.
It's kind of deep.
You said that already.
And soothing.
Soothing? Rachel, is that another way of saying I'm boring? Do I put you to sleep, Rachel?
Maybe. I mean, you could go into radio, Lewis. I think you have a radio voice.
That's interesting. Radio instead of engineering, which is where my father wants me to go. What do you think, Rachel? Can you see me wearing a tie and sitting in an office with my computer and calculator?
You could be the other kind of engineer, the kind who works outdoors, on roads and bridges, and wears big laced-up boots.
And plaid shirts, Lewis says, his voice brightening. The only thing, Rachel, I'd need shoulder pads in all those plaid shirts. You know, If you go out on one of those jobs and you have runty shoulders, they all just laugh at you.
There you are. Radio's perfect for you, Rachel says. Nobody can take your shoulders on the radio. Sorry, nobody can see your shoulders on the radio.
Rachel's half asleep when her parents come home, and in the morning, as usual, she's slow and not at her best. It's not until her father has gone to work and her mother and her are both on their way out the house that she remembers Dr. North's call. Shirley's hand flies to her chest. "Oh, cold? Why didn't you tell me last night?"
Ma, I was sleeping. I'm telling you now.
You should have told me right away. You should have left a note.
"I'm sorry," she says. Why is her mother making such a fuss in such a loud voice?
They are standing on the front steps, and across the street, Raymond Ramiro, who's in her class, is leaving his house. She's sure he's looking at them. She shifts her knapsack from shoulder to shoulder. "Why does he want to see me?" her mother says. "What's it about?"
"Something about Grandpa. That's all I know."
Rachel wants to leave, but she can't. The note of anxiety rings in her mother's voice. It holds her firmly as a rope. "What is he going to tell me?" Shirley takes off her frames and wipes them on her jacket sleeve. Her eyes look naked. She is scared, Rachel thinks, and for a moment she resists stubbornly her mother's fears. They are not her fears. Then she says,
"Ma, do you want me to go to the doctor's with you?"
Her mother looks at her. "You?" Rachel stiffens. Is it really that outlandish an idea? She went along to the hospital to pick up her grandfather, didn't she? Why is this any different? She only offered because her mother looked like she needed support. Rachel goes down the steps.
"I'm going to school."
"Mouse," her mother says. Rachel turns. Her mother nods. The doctor's on Colomer Street. Can you get a bus from school?" And that was chapter 9.